The stable boy woke before the sun. His hands smelled of hay and dust, his back sore from sleeping on wooden boards. He was no knight, no soldier, not even a squire. He was only the boy who brushed dragon scales, carried water buckets, and cleaned the stone floors where the beasts slept. But on that day, the morning air carried a strange heaviness, as if the world itself was waiting for something to break. The great city walls of Caldrith stood high against the horizon. Within those walls lived dragons older than kingdoms, chained and bound by the empire for war. The boy had grown up among their snorts, their fiery breaths, their restless eyes. He never thought they noticed him. To them, he was smaller than a rat, weaker than a shadow. Yet as he carried water to the dragon pens that morning, he felt eyes watching him, sharper than blades. He set down the bucket near the largest beast, a scaled titan with eyes like burning suns. Its wings stretched wider than houses. Its name was Orith, the oldest dragon in the stables. Orith lowered its massive head until its nostrils were close enough to scatter the boy's hair with each breath. The boy froze. His heart thundered. He whispered without thinking, "Why are you watching me?" But Orith only blinked slowly, as if hiding a secret. Before he could step back, the horns of alarm blared across the city. The ground shook. Bells clanged. Soldiers shouted. Caldrith was under attack. Shadows moved on the horizon, not of men, but of machines. Strange war engines rolled closer, glowing with lights not of this world. The boy had heard rumors of them, giants of steel from the outer colonies, machines that cut through stone and fire. His hands shook as he ran outside. The war had come to them at last. The dragons roared, pulling at their chains. Soldiers rushed to unlock the iron gates, shouting commands, ready to ride them into battle. But something was wrong. The dragons resisted their riders. Their eyes burned with fury, but not at the machines beyond the walls. They looked instead toward the emperor's palace, as if the true enemy was inside. Soldiers cursed, beat them with iron rods, but the beasts would not move. The boy stood among the chaos, too small to be noticed, too weak to be ordered. Yet, his eyes widened as Orith bent low again, staring at him. Not at the soldiers. The emperor himself appeared on the high walls, wrapped in silver armor, holding a spear that shimmered with crackling light. His voice carried like thunder. "Dragons of Caldrith, obey your masters, defend this city, or be destroyed." His words echoed with power. But the dragons only growled deeper, their scales flashing with sparks of inner fire. Then, without warning, Orith slammed its chains against the ground. The iron shattered. The beast lifted its head high and released a roar that cracked the sky. The other dragons followed, breaking their bonds one by one, ignoring the soldiers who screamed at them. The air was filled with fire and thunder, and the boy could only watch. Then came the moment that froze every soldier in place. One by one, the dragons turned their heads, not toward the emperor, not toward the invading machines, but toward the stable boy standing in the dust, his small frame shaking under their gaze. Orith lowered his head until his golden eye was level with the boy's face. The world seemed to stop. The emperor shouted again, raising his spear. The soldiers pointed their weapons. But none of it mattered. For every dragon in the city was bowing, lowering their massive heads to a single boy who had never held a sword. Boy's mouth went dry. His hands trembled. He had no idea why this was happening or what it meant. He whispered, "I don't understand." Yet deep inside his chest, he felt something awaken, like an ember glowing for the first time. The Kaumbiu. Dragons knew. They had chosen. And now, in front of kings and soldiers, the fate of the city rested not with armies or emperors, but with the boy who had once been nothing more than a stable hand. The soldiers could not believe what they were seeing. Some fell to their knees in fear, while others raised their weapons higher, ready to strike the boy. The emperor shouted for silence, his voice filled with anger. "Stand aside from that child." He roared, "The dragons must obey me." But no matter how loud his words were, the dragons did not look at him. Their eyes, glowing with ancient fire, stayed fixed on the boy. It was as if the emperor's command had lost all meaning. The boy's heart pounded as he stepped back. He wanted to hide, to run, to be invisible like always. But Orith, the great dragon, moved closer. Its massive head pressed against the ground, low enough for the boy to touch. The sound of its breath rumbled like thunder. The boy lifted his hand without thinking, and when his palm met the dragon's warm scales, a spark of blue light shot into the air. The soldiers gasped. The emperor's face turned pale beneath his helmet. The boy had done what no emperor, no general, no soldier had ever done. He had awakened the bond. The ground shook again as the war machines drew closer to the city. Huge shadows moved beyond the gates, their iron bodies shining with unnatural light. The air was filled with a strange hum, sharp and cold, unlike any sound the dragons had ever known. The soldiers grew restless, but the dragon stood still, waiting for the boy. The boy looked around, unsure, terrified. "Why me?" he whispered. But Orith's eyes glowed brighter, as if the dragon understood a truth the boy could not yet see. At last the emperor raised his crackling spear. "Seize him," he commanded. "That boy is a curse. Do not let him control what belongs to me." Soldiers rushed forward, but before they could reach him, Orith swung its massive tail. The stone ground cracked, and the men were thrown aside like leaves in the wind. The other dragons growled in unison, surrounding the boy in a protective circle. Their wings lifted, their claws scraped the ground, and their fire shimmered between sharp teeth. The soldiers dared not move closer. For the first time, the army feared not the enemy at the gates, but the power rising within their own walls. The boy stood in the center, trembling. He had never been special. He had never fought. Yet now the most powerful creatures in the world bowed to him. He could feel their strength rushing through his chest like fire. His fear turned to something else, something heavy, something dangerous. He raised his eyes to the emperor and spoke words he did not know were inside him. "They do not belong to you." They never did. His voice was small, but it carried through the courtyard like a storm. The emperor's face twisted with rage. "Do you think the throne bends to a child? Do you think beasts will save you from me?" He thrust his spear high, and lightning shot from its tip, striking the ground near the boy. The dragons roared in fury, their fire lighting the sky. Orith lowered its wing, shielding the boy from the blast. Smoke rose around them, but the boy was untouched. The emperor stepped back, shocked. His power had failed. The boy could see it, the fear in the ruler's eyes. The stable boy had become something the emperor could not control. Then the war machines crashed into the gates. The iron doors shattered, sending stone flying. The machines marched inside, taller than towers, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Soldiers screamed, breaking ranks. The emperor turned his fury toward them. "Defend the city," he shouted. But the men hesitated. Their courage was broken. The dragons, however, stood firm. Orith roared, and the sound shook the city's walls. The boy felt fire burn in his chest as if it belonged to him too. He raised his hand again, and the dragons answered, their flames blasting into the machines with thunderous force. The battle was chaos. Fire met steel. The machines struck with beams of light, cutting through stone and armor. But the dragons moved as one, led by a boy who had never known power before. He did not command them with words. He only felt, and they felt with him. When he feared, they shielded. When he grew angry, they struck. When he longed for victory, they roared. The bond was alive, and it was stronger than iron. The boy stood taller, though his knees trembled. He was no longer just a servant. He was something greater, though he did not yet understand what. High above, the emperor watched with furious eyes. His empire was slipping from his grasp. The dragons had betrayed him. His soldiers wavered. And all of it was because of one stable boy. He gripped his spear tighter, whispering to himself, "If I cannot rule through them, then I will end him. The boy must die." His words were soft, but his eyes burned with deadly intent. The boy did not see it yet, but his greatest enemy was not the machines nor the invaders. His greatest enemy was the man who wore the crown of Cauldrith. The city shook with every blast from the war machines. Towers crumbled, walls cracked, and fire spread across the streets. Soldiers ran in panic, torn between the invaders at the gates and the dragons in the courtyard. But all eyes kept returning to the boy. He stood small in the center, surrounded by fire and wings, yet every dragon bowed to him. To the soldiers, it looked impossible. To the emperor, it looked like treason. The emperor clenched his spear. His voice cut through the chaos. "This child is no savior. He is a danger to us all. Kill him before he brings ruin." His words echoed, and his soldiers looked uncertain. Some stepped forward, trembling, but none dared cross the line of dragonfire. Orith bared his fangs, smoke rising from his nostrils. The boy's hand shook as he lifted it again, not to strike, but to plead. "Please," he whispered, his voice breaking, "stop this. I don't want war." But no one listened. The emperor's thirst for power was greater than any plea. The invaders advanced deeper into the city. Their steel bodies crushed stone, roads as if they were sand. They fired beams of light, tearing through houses and walls. Screams filled the air. The emperor cursed at his soldiers, forcing them to charge, but the men broke ranks. They had no courage left. Their eyes turned again to the boy and the dragons. In that moment, the emperor saw his greatest fear become real. The army no longer looked to him for strength. They looked to the boy. Fury burned inside the emperor. He raised his spear high, lightning swirling around it. The sky darkened, clouds splitting apart as the weapon gathered power. "If the dragons bow to him, then I will strike him down myself," he shouted. The boy's heart raced. He could feel the spear's energy building, hot and deadly. Orith stepped forward, wings spreading wide to shield him. But the emperor's weapon was made to slay even dragons. One strike could kill them all. The boy's hands glowed faintly, blue sparks dancing across his skin. He did not understand it, but the dragons did. They growled low, waiting for his signal. The emperor hurled the spear of lightning. It tore through the sky, a streak of pure destruction. Orith roared and leapt into its path. The blast struck him, exploding in fire and thunder. The shockwave sent soldiers sprawling, shattered windows, and cracked stone walls. Smoke filled the air. The boy screamed as Orith fell, his great body crashing into the ground. Dust and fire swirled around them. For a moment, the boy thought the dragon was gone forever. His chest ached with grief. But then, beneath the smoke, he saw Orith's eye open, still burning with light. The beast had survived, but barely. The boy fell to his knees, clutching the dragon's scales. "Why?" he whispered. "Why protect me?" Orith's deep growl rumbled like an answer, though no words came. The bond between them grew stronger, hotter, until the boy's veins felt alive with fire. His fear melted into something else, something sharp and powerful. He turned to the emperor, his small hands glowing brighter, blue light flickering like flames. "You will not hurt them again," he said, and though his voice was soft, it carried across the courtyard like thunder. The dragons roared in unison. Fire burst from their throats, blazing into the sky. The boy rose slowly, his eyes glowing faintly, reflecting the dragon's fire. The emperor stepped back, shaken. He had seen many warriors, many kings, but never this. The boy did not wield a weapon. He did not wear armor. Yet the dragons answered him, not the emperor. In that moment, even the soldiers began to whisper, "The boy is chosen." The emperor heard them, and his rage turned into something darker, hatred, the kind that would burn a kingdom to ash. The machine struck again, firing beams into the dragons. Scales cracked, wings tore, but still the beasts fought on. The boy raised his hand, and together they pushed forward. Fire poured into the streets, melting steel. The invaders staggered under the fury of dragon flame. The boy could feel every strike, every roar, as if the battle flowed through him. When he stumbled, the dragons braced him. When he stood tall, they followed. The bond was unbreakable. Yet even as they fought, he knew the emperor's eyes never left him. High above, on the palace wall, the emperor lifted his spear again. But this time, he did not aim for dragons. He aimed for the boy's heart. "You will not steal my throne." "Child," he hissed. His hand trembled with rage. He did not see the machines tearing through his soldiers. He did not hear the screams of his people. All he saw was the boy who had taken what was his. He pulled back the spear, ready to throw once more. The boy's eyes widened. He could feel death coming for him. Orith growled, too weak to rise. The other dragons roared, but too far to block it. For the first time, the boy knew he might not survive. The emperor's spear of lightning glowed brighter than the sun. The air trembled, the sky itself cracked with thunder. Every soldier, every dragon, every villager hiding in the ruins felt the power building. This strike was not just meant to kill the boy. It was meant to erase him, to end the bond the dragons had chosen. The emperor's eyes burned with rage. "No child will steal my crown," he hissed. His arm pulled back, ready to throw. The boy's chest tightened, his breath shallow. For the first time, he felt the weight of death pressing against him like a shadow. The dragons roared as one, their voices shaking the earth. Some leapt forward, trying to shield the boy, but they were too far. Orith struggled, his body broken from the last strike. Yet he dragged himself across the stone, wings torn, eyes blazing. The boy's heart ached to see the beast suffer for him. "No," he shouted, stepping in front of the dragon. His hands burned with blue light, brighter than before, brighter than he thought possible. The sparks danced across his skin like fire, and when he raised his arms, the dragons stopped roaring. They waited, silent, watching. It was as if they knew what was coming. The emperor hurled the spear. It flew like a storm, tearing through the air, faster than thought. The boy lifted both hands, his palms glowing like twin suns. The spear struck and the world exploded in light. A shockwave ripped through the courtyard, shattering walls, throwing soldiers to the ground. Fire and smoke covered everything. For a moment, no one could see who had survived. The emperor smiled coldly, certain the boy had been destroyed. But as the smoke cleared, his smile vanished. The boy still stood. His body shook, his arms burned, but he held the spear in his hands. The weapon of emperors, the tool of conquest, the lightning forged to kill dragons. It was caught in the grip of a stable boy. Sparks raced across his fingers, but instead of burning him, they bowed to him. The dragons roared in triumph, their voices filling the sky. The boy's knees almost gave way, yet something deep inside him kept him standing. The bond had grown stronger. He had taken the emperor's power into his own hands. The soldiers gasped in disbelief. Some dropped their weapons. Others fell too, their knees whispering, "Chosen! Chosen!" The emperor's face twisted with fury. His spear belonged only to him, yet now it obeyed another. He screamed, his voice breaking with madness. "You think you are their master? You are nothing but dirt. I built this empire. I command dragons. You will not take them from me." His words echoed, but they were empty now. Even his soldiers no longer believed them. The war machines pressed deeper into the city, firing beams that burned through stone and flesh. The streets ran with fire. The dragons fought on, their flames blasting through steel. But even their strength was not endless. For every machine destroyed, 2 more marched forward. The boy felt their pain, the cracking of their scales, the heavy weight of their wounds. He clutched the spear tighter, unsure how to wield it, yet certain it was the only way. He raised it high, and the blue fire in his chest poured into it. The weapon glowed brighter, transforming from lightning into something older, something the dragons recognized. Their eyes widened with awe. It was no longer the Emperor's spear. It was the weapon of the first rider. Orith lifted his head, his voice rolling like thunder. The sound was not just a roar, it was a call. The other dragons answered, spreading their wings, forming a circle around the boy. The blue light in his hand stretched outward, connecting him to each of them. For the first time in centuries, dragon and human became one. The boy felt their fire in his blood, their wings on his back, their hearts beating with his. He no longer feared, he no longer trembled. He stood taller, his voice strong. "You will not harm them," he said. And the dragons roared in agreement. The Emperor staggered back, shaken by the sight. He had chased power his entire life, and now a boy held more than he ever dreamed. Still, he refused to surrender. His pride was too great. He drew a blade from his side, forged of black steel, sharp enough to cut through dragon scale. "If power has abandoned me," he growled, "then I will take your life with my own hands." He leapt from the wall, his cloak whipping behind him, landing with a crash on the stones below. His eyes locked on the boy. His blade gleamed with death. "You are mine," he whispered. The boy lifted the spear, fire blazing along its shaft. He had never fought, never trained, but the dragons guided his hand. Their strength flowed into his arms, steadying his fear. The courtyard grew silent, save for the crackling of fire and the distant thunder of war. Boy and Emperor faced each other, 2 figures bound by fate. One born in stables, the other born to rule. One chosen by dragons, the other consumed by greed. The air trembled between them, the weight of history pressing down. The dragons lowered their heads, watching, waiting. For the first time the boy understood. This was not just about a city or an empire. This was about the future of all dragonkind. And he could not fail. The courtyard grew silent. Fire crackled in the ruins. Smoke drifted above the broken towers. All eyes fixed on the boy and the Emperor. The dragons stood still, their wings folded, their breaths heavy with heat. They did not roar. They did not strike. They waited. For this was no longer a battle of armies. It was a battle of 2 souls. The Emperor's black blade glimmered in the firelight. Forged in shadows, it had ended kings, knights, and even dragons. Its edge could split stone with a whisper. In his hand it seemed alive, eager to taste blood. The boy gripped the spear, blue fire flowing along its shaft. He had never held a weapon before, but the dragons guided him. Their bond steadied his fear. Their strength filled his arms. For the first time, the boy did not feel small. He did not feel weak. He stood as their equal. The Emperor rushed forward, striking with speed no human should possess. His blade slashed through the air, aiming for the boy's chest. The boy raised the spear, sparks bursting as steel met lightning. The clash shook the stones beneath their feet. Soldiers shielded their eyes. Dragons rumbled low, their claws scraping the ground. The boy's arms trembled under the weight of the strike, but he did not fall. He pushed back, and the blue fire flared brighter. The Emperor snarled, his face twisted with hate. "You are nothing, you clean stables. You are dirt under my boots." He struck again, faster, harder. The boy blocked, each strike sending pain through his bones. His legs shook, his hands burned, yet he did not fall. He remembered the long nights carrying water, the heavy buckets, the endless days of labor. He remembered every time he was ignored, every time he was told he was worthless. Now all that pain became strength. He shouted back, "I am more than you will ever be." His voice echoed through the ruins, and the dragons roared with him. The Emperor's fury grew. He struck wild, his blade carving sparks into stone. But with each clash, the boy grew steadier. The spear moved as if alive, guiding his arms, turning his weakness into strength. The blue fire wrapped around him, brighter than the Emperor's blade. His fear melted away. He no longer fought as a servant trying to survive. He fought as the chosen of dragons. Every strike of the spear rang with their voices. Every spark carried their fire. The Emperor's strength began to falter. Sweat dripped from his brow. His rage could no longer hide his fear. Suddenly the Emperor lunged low, his blade cutting toward the boy's side. The boy was too slow to block. The steel sliced across his arm, and pain shot through his body. He stumbled, dropping to one knee. The Emperor smiled, his teeth sharp in the firelight. "You bleed," he whispered. "You are no chosen one. You are still just a boy." He raised the blade high for the final strike. Soldiers held their breath. Even the dragons growled in fear. But as the boy fell, his hand brushed Orith's wounded scales. A surge of warmth filled him, stronger than before. The dragon's heart beat with his, pushing strength into his broken body. The boy rose, his arm still bleeding but his spirit unbroken. He gripped the spear tighter, blue fire blazing higher, wrapping him like armor. His eyes glowed with light. The Emperor stepped back, startled. "What are you?" he demanded. The boy's voice was steady now, filled with a power beyond his own. "I am the one they chose," he said. "I am not your servant. I am not your slave. I am the rider you could never be." The dragons roared together, their wings lifting, their fire lighting the night. The sound shook the Emperor to his bones. The Emperor screamed in rage and charged again, his blade cutting arcs of black steel. The boy met him with the spear, their weapons clashing in a storm of sparks and fire. They moved faster, harder, each strike echoing through the broken city. The ground split, stone shattered, fire rose higher. Soldier and beast alike could only watch, for no one dared enter the storm. The boy's body ached, his wounds burned, but the dragon's bond lifted him. The Emperor's strike slowed. His blade grew heavy. His face twisted with desperation. He had built his throne on power, but power no longer answered him. With one final cry, the boy thrust the spear forward. The blue fire blazed brighter than the stars. It struck the Emperor's blade, shattering it into black shards that fell. Like ash, the force lifted the Emperor from his feet, throwing him across the courtyard. He crashed into the stone wall, his armor broken, his crown falling from his head. Silence followed. Smoke drifted through the air. The boy stood in the center, his chest rising and falling, the spear still glowing in his hands. The Emperor groaned. Crawling through the dust, his pride shattered. The dragons lowered their heads again, bowing deeper than before. Soldiers fell to their knees, unable to deny the truth any longer. The boy, once a stable hand, now stood as something greater. But the battle was not over. The war machines still advanced, their weapons glowing, their shadows stretching across the burning city. The boy turned, lifting the spear once more. His eyes burned with fire, his voice calm. "This fight is not finished," he whispered. And the dragons roared, ready to follow him into the storm. The city of Caldrith burned. Flames climbed the towers, smoke covered the sky, and screams filled the air. The Emperor lay broken against the stone wall, his crown shattered, his blade destroyed. Yet the war was not over. Beyond the ruined gates, The war machines marched forward. Their iron bodies glowed with deadly power, their weapons humming with energy. They had not come for the emperor. They had not come for the throne. They had come for the dragons. And now they saw the boy leading them. The dragons gathered around him, their wings spreading, their eyes glowing with fire. Orith, wounded but unbroken, stood tall beside the boy. His scales cracked, his chest scorched, yet his gaze was fierce. The boy held the spear high, the blue fire flowing through him like a river. He felt their strength in his blood, their hearts beating with his. For the first time, he did not feel like a stable hand. He felt like a rider, chosen and true. He looked at the machines, their shadows stretching across the burning streets, and he whispered, "Come then." "We are ready," the machines fired. Beams of white light cut through the air, blasting stone into dust. But the dragons moved as one. Fire poured from their throats, a wall of flame meeting steel. The boy lifted the spear, and blue fire arched above them like a shield. The beam struck it, sparking against the light, unable to break through. Soldiers gasped, watching from the ruins. They had never seen such a thing, dragons and a human standing as one, unshaken against the storm. The boy's arms ached, his wounds burned, but he did not falter. The bond held strong. Orith roared and leapt forward, crashing into the nearest machine. His claws tore through metal, his fire melted steel. Another dragon followed, striking from the sky, smashing the enemy with its weight. The boy felt every strike, every flame, every wound. His body shook with the pain of the battle, yet it only made him stronger. He raised the spear again, and blue fire shot forward, piercing the chest of a machine. It exploded, collapsing into rubble. The soldiers cheered, their fear turning to hope. For the first time, they believed they might survive. The machines did not stop. More poured through the gates, their footsteps shaking the ground. They surrounded the courtyard, their weapons glowing brighter. The boy gritted his teeth. He could feel the dragons tiring, their strength fading. If they fought alone, they would fall. He closed his eyes, gripping the spear tighter. "Not alone," he whispered, "never alone." The bond flared stronger than ever before. The blue fire spread, not just through the dragons, but through the soldiers, through the city itself. The weak stood taller, the broken found courage. Even the earth seemed to rumble with new life. The boy had awakened more than dragons. He had awakened the heart of his people. The machines fired together, beams of light crashing toward the boy. He stepped forward, spear raised, and the dragons roared with him. Fire, light, and steel collided. The explosion tore through the city, blinding and deafening all. When the smoke cleared, the machines were nothing but broken heaps of twisted metal. The boy stood at the center, his body scorched, his clothes torn, yet his eyes burned with fire. The dragons bowed again, their heads low in respect. Around them silence fell. The battle was over. The emperor crawled from the rubble, his armor cracked, his eyes wild. He stared at the boy, his voice broken. "It should have been me," he whispered. "They were mine." He reached for the pieces of his crown, his hands shaking. But the soldiers did not follow him anymore. They turned away, their eyes fixed on the boy. The emperor's power was gone, his throne lost. He was a shadow of a ruler, forgotten in a single moment. The boy did not strike him down. He did not need to. The dragons had already chosen, and the people had already seen. The emperor's time had ended. The boy looked at Orith, his heart heavy. "Why me?" he asked softly. The great dragon lowered his head, his voice a deep rumble. Though no words formed, the boy felt the answer in his chest. "Because you listen. Because you care. Because you are not ruled by greed, but by heart." Tears filled the boy's eyes. He had never been special. He had only cleaned, carried, and obeyed. Yet that was why the dragons had chosen him. He was not a master, he was one of them. The city was broken, but not destroyed. The dragons lifted their wings, roaring into the sky. The people cheered, their voices rising with hope. The boy stood among the ruins, the spear glowing faintly in his hands. He knew the path ahead would not be easy. Rebuilding would take years. New enemies would rise, but he was no longer afraid. He was not just a stable boy anymore. He was the rider of dragons, the bond between beast and man. And as long as he lived, the dragons would never bow to a tyrant again. That day would be remembered in every song, in every tale, in every whisper across the stars. The day a boy rose from the stables, and the ancient dragons bowed their heads to him.